Il y a quelqu'un qui a un œil sur le restaurant,
Three guys shot my husband.
Yeah.
I don't have my telephone. J'ai rien. No téléphone, no argent.
Yeah, you've got my telephones in my pocket.
Okay. So he has his telephone.
Drivers just happened in front of me here in Grand Cars here right now there. That just happened in front of me here in Grand Cars. Man just get shoot, tourists get shoot for his bag because they were walking to Grand Cars Beach Club Hotel. Right here in Grand Cars.
At first, we start with MP Mrs. De Wever. It's about a question about the real estate properties of government. It's the amount for the rent for the tourist office on Front Street. That amount, is that in dollars or is that in guilders? The rental amount that the Member of Parliament is referring to is the amount of 27,307.23 cents per month for the tourist office on Front Street, and this amount is in US dollars. This is reflected in the budget under the name Economics and Tourists. In the overview of huurgebouwen, rental buildings, it is listed as number 76 under the name Vineyard Private Fund Foundation. But actually, it's wrongly stated under Vineyard Private Fund Foundation as a name. The correct name is EFB Properties. So you can find it also in the appendix, the annex of the budget, and it's on page 112. You can find it actually on the list. You find it under the name of Vineyard Private Fund Foundation, but the correct name is the EFB Properties, and the amount is in dollars. Question number 2 from Member of Parliament, Mrs. Ludmila De Wever. The real estate property list is not complete and needs to have a correct version to include everyone in it. MP, through you, Madam Chair, the real estate property list will be verified to ensure it remains up to date, inclusive of any name change or ownership change. So you are correct, and we are going to pay attention to that. Directing myself now to answering MP Janssen-Webster. Her statement was in question. With GB, it was mentioned about alleviation. Can you elaborate on what you did concretely and the meetings that you did have to work on solutions? On November the 1st, 2024, a meeting was held with management of GEBE and members of the Council of Ministers to begin actually discussions on the cost of energy bills and the fuel clause with the aim of determining the possibility of relief on energy bills. Thereafter, given the complexities involved, it was decided by the Council of Ministers that it would be best to appoint the BTP to consult with the relevant stakeholders and present government with their findings and recommendations on how best to handle the fuel cost and the fuel clause. This request has been formally made to the BTP, and communication has taken place with the relevant stakeholders, informing them of this development and requesting their cooperation. This approach is intended to ensure that the examination of the fuel clause and the fuel clause is as thorough as possible, so that any possible relief will be long-lasting and effective, while ensuring that our government-owned company, NVGEBE, can operate in a sustainable manner. Going now to answers from MP Irion. Are you then willing to make endorsement letters for every entity that comes to you for a request for an endorsement? The answer is I will not hesitate to write a letter of endorsement or take any necessary action if it aligns with the best interest of our people and contributes to the growth and prosperity of our beloved country. So let me make this perfectly clear. My only agenda is to serve the people of St. Martin. I have no personal business interests, no hidden motives. My sole purpose is to work tirelessly for the betterment of our great country. At no point in time were any funds solicited via my endorsement letter. The 250 guilders net apparently was paid. So what was the brutto amount paid? The net amount of 250 guilders has been disbursed. However, it's the responsibility of each individual to comply with the law when filling in their income tax. Monetary benefits received, including non-cash benefit such as vouchers, must be reported as part of your income when submitting your tax return. Regarding the payout process, it's important to reiterate that gratification payments cannot be equated with a Christmas payment, as they are fundamentally different. Gratification and certain allowances are governed by the Landsverordening Materieel Ambtenarenrecht, the so-known LMA. As such, gratification payments must adhere to the applicable legislative and policy requirements which do not apply to the Christmas payment. Question number 3. Did this COM only use a COM decision for this payment? Therefore, there should be no excuses to pay for things. The decision by the Council of Ministers authorized the payment to proceed. As it's widely known, most decisions of the Council of Ministers and ministers are regulated by law. Using the example of gratification, it is clearly outlined in regulations how such matters should be addressed. This is not the case for this extra pay by the government. Therefore, the decision of the Council of Ministers was the necessary step to enable the payment to proceed. Question 4. Who will make the payments for the Jubilees, and will they be paid this year? And it seems all you need is a calm decision to do so. The Jubilees will be paid in 2025 when the law is implemented. Question number 5. How much money was raised for this initiative? Will government get these lights afterward? Will they be stored to be used again next year? So there would be no need to endorse such a lighting project again. Madam Chair, this is another question designed to distract from the purpose of an endorsement. The amount of money raised is at the discretion of the business community and the organization responsible for the Christmas light project. How much was received or what they did with the funds raised does not fall under my responsibility and or purview. The lights are not and will not become property of the government, as the sole involvement of government was only an endorsement. Questions now from MP Otley. Lack of respect to the members of parliament. It was answered already. The request is to repeat the answers. As of now, I have no problem to repeat the same answer again on the floor of Parliament. I understand his request, and we will honor it, no problem. Question number 2. Did anyone that you hired in your term require dispensation? And if it was required, was it requested to work in your cabinet? Members of cabinet that derive from outside of the organization are hired by means of contract. In the event that a civil servant goes to a cabinet, this is done by means of transfer to the cabinet through a national decree. Question number 3. What is the role of a caretaker government? What can you and cannot do? A caretaker government typically focuses on maintaining day-to-day operation and handling ongoing matters, commonly referred to as lopende zaken. Additionally, it is understood that during this period, Parliament has the authority to provide guidance to the Council of Ministers regarding its expectations for the caretaker administration. It is also well established that a caretaker government refrains from initiating new projects or policies that could obligate or compromise the incoming government. Question number 4. Can I see the contractual date on the first 10 generators when that was signed, and I would like to see the date of the board's approval for the payment of the generators or the transfer of the funds for these generators. It can also be done confidentially. It's no problem. I can give the answer. The Supervisory Board of Directors authorized the temporary manager of GB to finalize negotiations and enter into a rental agreement to rent the 10 megawatt generators on June the 24th, 2024. Rental agreement was countersigned on June the 27th, 2024. Initial down payment was processed and authorized for release on June the 28th, 2024.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Question number 1, the Minister plans for students abroad. The MP asked regarding education streams that are needed here on St. Martin, if it works, if it still exists, etc. The Minister Plaatsen program was originally introduced to ensure that students from the Dutch Caribbean had access to enrollment in programs with a numerous fixes. However, this practice was later abolished. Recently, the education ministries of the 4 countries within the kingdom have been discussing its reinstatement during the 4-country consultations, the Vierlanden Overleg. Research conducted by the Vierlanden Overleg highlights the benefits of reintroducing this program in the short term. By implementing a framework that grants access to Minister Plaatsen in areas with significant labor market shortages, the Caribbean parts of the kingdom would experience substantial capacity building. In April 2024, the Dutch Second Chamber approved a motion to reinstate this practice. Although the motion was passed with a narrow majority of 78 votes to 72, the timeline for implementation remains unclear. The motion was requesting the government to reinstate the Minister Plaatsen or establish a similar regulation. I believe the motion's approval demonstrates a growing interest in addressing this issue, and we can continue to advocate for progress on this through the VLO consultations. Question 2, there was a study done on the financial struggle that the students have in the Netherlands compared to the US and Canada. Could we get that report, and does the Minister have any plans with dealing with that? Unfortunately, Madam Chair, through you, the Ministry is not aware of the report that is being referenced. If additional details could be provided by the MP regarding the exact name of the report and the author, we can conduct a further review to discover that. However, I am aware of challenges that these students face, in particular in the Netherlands, when it comes to their financial matters. Housing in the Netherlands for students there, whether by purchasing a building or even a floor, thus increasing the housing for St. Martin students abroad is important. Through you, Madam Chair, to the MP, due to budget cuts, minimal resources are available for new projects such as this. Assistance was requested from St. Martin's Municipal Plenipotentiary in the Netherlands to facilitate agreements with student housing cooperatives. However, to date, little progress has been made. There are no plans for capital investments in housing for students in the Netherlands. I just want to note as well, Madam Chair Lady, that during my own time living in the Netherlands, this is a topic that was raised to the St. Martin government by myself and the organization I founded while there, about at least making an agreement with the housing cooperatives. I have already met with the Municipal Plenipotentiary on this matter, so she and I are in consultation on how we can support this initiative, as this is something that actually Aruba and Curacao have established for their students for quite some time. Question number 4, scholarship funds was cut. Why? Can you elucidate on that? The ministry received funding for a project focused on studying in the region, which was approved by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science in the Netherlands. From 2012 to 2023, the ministry implemented this project, providing study financing to students pursuing education locally and regionally. At the conclusion of this period, a new agreement was established, and a project file was submitted in alignment with the country's agreements under the Strategic Education Alliance, the C project. The new project focuses on priorities aimed at strengthening and enhancing secondary education to better prepare students for the transition to higher education. Recently, the ministry received funding from the Netherlands for projects under the C and is currently preparing to execute the associated activities. Question 5. For CAPEX, why was the ICT hardware and software for the Department of Education cut by 522,000 guilders? Was this for the digital tracking system for the school buses? Through you, Madam Chair, there's been no cut to ICT software for the Department of Education. As it relates to the investment for digital fleet tracking system for student transportation, this CAPEX item has been approved and is currently in the final stages of completion, where implementation is scheduled for 2025. Question 6, did the minister have any say for the cuts in the budget? Upon swearing in on November 26, 2024, Budget 2025 was pretty much on the way. Therefore, I did not have any say in the cuts. But as I have stated in my inaugural address and elsewhere, I don't support further cuts to the ECYS budget, as I'm a firm believer in the vital importance of this ministry for the further positive and progressive development of this country. Question 7, why hasn't the government re-included the investments that were taken out of the capital investment budget for the Charlotte Brookson Academy? The 12 million guilder CAPEX investment pertained to the building of a public high school and not the CBA. This investment was not re-included in the draft 2025 budget proposal due to incomplete required supporting documentation, such as the required plans, architectural drawings, and land allocation details for the project. Instead, the CAPEX investment has been shifted to be included in the draft 2026 capital investment budget, pending the completion and inclusion of the necessary supporting documents. Question 8. How can schools be out of essentials and need to seek donations? And he was, the MP, I believe, was referring public schools. The government of St. Martin, being the only source of funding for the public schools, means that choices will have to be made regarding what can be acquired and when, based on budget. This is why it is always unfortunate when this ministry faces significant cuts when cuts are required. Operating expenses are consistent and persistent, so it's tough to know that each month you need to purchase X amount of cases of printer paper, but your budget cut means you can only purchase Y amount. Additionally, where it pertains to donations, I just want to make a note that all schools are informed that they are not independent entities, and all donations to public schools must be handled directly via the Office of the Minister ECYS, with Division Public Education in a coordinating role. There are, however, still instances where this protocol has not been strictly followed, and steps are being taken to remedy this and streamline all public and private partnerships for the public schools via the Office of the Minister of ECYS. I also want to note, Madam Chair, that I do understand it is frustrating to see, especially public schools, struggling to meet basic operational needs, but there are reasons why initiatives have to go through the ministry and via DPE. I sincerely hope as well that this is a frustration we hold on to when deciding where to allocate funds from revenue streams in the future.
first one was from MP Duran. Is there a willingness to adjust the law to suit our situation regarding the gun amnesty and retired uniformed officers to have a firearm? I hope you can reconsider. To answer the MP's question, yes, there's a willingness to consider adjustments to the law to address specific concerns, such as the situation of retired uniformed officers carrying firearms. However, any change must be approached carefully and with due consideration of all potential impacts and consequences. Too often, decisions made from an emotional standpoint or without thorough oversight can lead to unintended challenges or gaps in implementation. The ministry remains open to exploring these issues, but is committed to ensuring that any amendments are well thought out, balanced, and aligned with the broader goals of public safety and effective governance. Then the question was, can clarity be provided on the 45 critical vacancies? Where are the majority of these vacancies? And can we consider them that only 3 are budgeted for? Can we increase that number to avoid sick leave and overworking? The majority of the vacancies are at KPSM, which totals 15. Additionally, 10 are at the Coast Guard, 6 at the prison. As mentioned yesterday, I'm looking at all ways to fill these vacancies, and I'm engaging with the Minister of Finance and our Kingdom counterparts in the coming weeks on this matter. The ministry acknowledges and underscores the negative consequences these reductions will have on the ministry, and we intend to amend this or address this through a budget amendment. I wanted to add to that the ministry had submitted a list of 45 critical vacancies, of which 42 of those were cut in this budget. Then the questions from MP Lewis. How many CPOs, community police officers, do we have? Do they also do training in Miami? How long is this training and how much does it cost? Currently, KPSM has 8 community police officers who work closely with stakeholders and the community across 10 districts. The training for the CPOs lasted a total of 6 months, including a 2-week program in Miami that combined theoretical instruction with an internship at multiple precincts of the Miami Police Department. Additional online coaching was provided and practical tasks were performed on the island itself. The total cost of the training was $145,000, covering 16 CPOs from all the Caribbean islands within the kingdom. The training was funded by the Board of Police Chiefs and supported by the Netherlands. How many police officers does KPSM have comparing to how many actual FTEs we have? For the KPSM officers only, not the staff, and also the officers at the Landsrecherche. In response to this question, I wanted to take a moment to provide some context regarding the overall staffing situation within the Ministry of Justice. The function book for the Ministry of Justice contains a total of 968 FTEs for the ministry, with an additional 22 FTEs allocated to the Court of Guardianship. Currently, only 494 FTEs are in service. This represents 49.8% of the total positions within the Ministry of Justice. Breaking this down further, at KPSM, there are 333 FTEs in the function book, of which 203 are filled. This equates to 61% of their staffing. To more specifically answer MP Lewis's questions, there are a total of 140 police officers working as executive service members, and of those 140, around 80 are in patrol units on the streets, and the rest work in different detective units. As for the Landsrecherche, there are 40 FTEs in the function book, with only 13 positions filled. 11 of those are detectives. This represents 32.5% of their staffing. By showing this, what I wanted to illustrate is that there are significant staffing shortages across the justice chain, which directly impact the ability of these departments to carry out their critical functions effectively. What is the plan van aanpak for the police force? KPSM has a growth plan aimed at capacity building in alignment with its function book. Additionally, several organizational issues have been addressed in the various advisory documents submitted to the ministry, including a desirability budget, a so-called wenselijkheidsbegroting. The Raad voor de Rechtshandhaving and the Progress Committee, or Voortgangscommissie, have also provided multiple recommendations to strengthen the police force. In 2025, creating a multi-year plan of approach in close collaboration between the ministry and KPSM could be a viable step forward and one that we are considering. Such a plan should include input from stakeholders and partnerships with international law enforcement agencies and ensure a comprehensive and effective strategy for capacity building and organizational development. Then the question, who pays the personnel of the prosecutor's office? Does St. Martin pay the personnel and the prosecutor, and from whose budget does it come? And then there was another question as to, do we pay the house vesting for the prosecutor, or is it included in the salaries? The budget of the Public Prosecution Service, the OM, is formed by two components: the budget for the PG, the Advocaat-Generaal, and the budget for the St. Martin Prosecutor's Office. The budget for the PG, which includes personnel and housing expenses, is funded by St. Martin, Curaçao, and the Netherlands for the BES, in accordance with the so-called Verdeelsleutel, pursuant to the Kingdom Act. The budget for the Parquet St. Martin, covering both personnel and housing, is entirely financed by the country of St. Martin. The same goes for Curaçao and the BES via the Netherlands. Regarding the statements where you said that the firm was terminated, was that the case and why? I came in as a minister and met them there. What is going on and why? It should not be that government is on retainer and nothing is happening to waste the money. One principle I firmly stand for is adherence to the law and transparency. It is equally important to me as a taxpayer myself that we stop treating government resources as a piggy bank and exercise prudence in our governance and spending. Upon taking office, I requested a review of all legal consultancy agreements within the ministry. During this review, I identified one agreement that, in my legal opinion, was not in compliance with the Accountability Ordinance. I subsequently requested that this specific advisory agreement be terminated and that the proper legal procedures for establishing such contracts be followed. As a result of this specific termination, the attorney in question chose to terminate all other legal and related services being provided to the ministry. To clarify, this firm was not terminated by the ministry as a whole, but themselves ceased providing services following the termination of this particular advisory contract. While I understand the concerns raised about the value for money and proper use of government resources, I can assure you that these decisions were made in the interest of good governance. Moving forward, I'm committed to ensuring that all agreements entered into by this ministry are legally compliant, transparent, and provide clear value to the public. This approach ensures accountability and the effective use of taxpayer funds.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah, your social and health insurances.
I talk to my colleagues in the parliament, I tell them all the time, don't fall in love with these jobs, you know. Don't fall in love with them. There are times when you have to leave them. And it's better to leave on your terms than to be sent out.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is denying that he is shirking his responsibilities by stepping away from politics in the near future, noting that it should be seen as a positive step for the country where a leader was not pushed out.
But it was difficult for people to accept that sitting leader would walk away. And it is being said more and more now that what is happening now has not happened before. And that is good, because it didn't happen before doesn't mean that it's not something that should or could happen. So we are all into a new situation. It's new for me. I've never done this before, but I have taken this direction.
Dr. Rowley was also asked whether he would stay on as leader of the People's National Movement until its next internal election.
As I said, that I am not going to be staying on until 2026. That's for sure. Okay, and if I'm required to go earlier than my own thoughts, I will do so.
On the highlight of his career, Dr. Rowley said navigating the pandemic as head of the country was a major responsibility he would never forget.
And I was very proud to have led that health team that steered us out of COVID. And the COVID experience for me, I think, would have been the highlight of my career, because I wasn't only functioning for Trinidad and Tobago. I was chairman of CARICOM, as you all may remember. And I had the responsibility of leading CARICOM in that very difficult period. And I think we came out of it, with some significant credit.
And he added that reviving the energy sector on its deal with Venezuela was another such highlight.
Putting Trinidad and Tobago in a position to have Point Lisas become the gateway into the world market for Venezuelan gas, and bringing our cross-border gas at Manatee, Coquina, Manikin, and so to Point Lisas. If I have done nothing else, if we get that done, as we are getting it done, that to me was the highlight of my political career.
The Prime Minister, though, criticized the opposition leader's comments on his bid to step down as Prime Minister before the next general election.
The opposition leader made a response to this development of my leaving. It is close to being pathetic. As a colleague of mine in the Parliament, I must tell you, not that I want to be praised by her, but I think that the kinds of commentary that flows, there's too much hatred, there's too much bile.
The Parliamentary Caucus of the People's National Movement is in Tobago for a retreat scheduled to conclude tomorrow, Monday. Sonolala, TTT News.